Hello there, I'm Sarah Nilsson. This presentation will be all about how you can fly recreationally in the National Airspace System. As you probably know by now, there have been changes to the rules regarding recreational flying. Today, we want to help you understand those changes, how you can still fly today, and what responsibilities you have as a recreational flyer. These changes came about through the 2018 FAA Reauthorization Act, where Congress mandated certain requirements for people flying drones for fun under the exception for limited recreational operations. Not all of Congress's requirements could be immediately implemented. Therefore, the FAA published interim safety guidance for recreational flyers in Advisory Circular 91-57B. It explains how to operate until the FAA can implement all of the requirements of the Reauthorization Act. More information is available on faa.gov/UAS. You're going to hear the term recreational flyer quite a bit, so let me explain what that really means. Recreational flying is flying an unmanned aircraft, a drone, quadcopter, RC aircraft, for purely recreational purposes, meaning you're flying just for fun. It does not include any flights in furtherance of business, regardless if money is being exchanged or not. If you are flying in connection with any business-related activity, including nonprofits, you must operate under Part 107, also known as the Small UAS Rule. Okay, so now that we have all that cleared up, let's talk about recreational drone flying. Before you fly your drone, if it weighs 0.55 pounds or more, you must register it. If you are at least 13 years old, you can register yourself as a recreational flyer with the FAA for $5. Registration is valid for 3 years, and if you have more than one drone you fly recreationally, you can use the same registration number on all of them. Remember, the registration number must be visible on an outside surface of the drone. Now that you've registered your drone, you're going to need to follow some basic safety guidelines. First, never fly over people or stadiums full of people. And never fly near emergency operations. This is very important. During emergency operations, it's important that public safety officials and the FAA know exactly what aircraft are in the air and where they are located. If you fly your drone near these operations, they will ground their aircraft and not be able to do their job. This can be particularly devastating during wildfire emergencies. It should go without saying, but you should never fly under the influence of alcohol or drugs. You also need to know the airspace you're planning to fly in. Generally speaking, there are two types of airspace recreational flyers need to be aware of: uncontrolled and controlled. Uncontrolled airspace is airspace in which air traffic control is not required to provide their services to aircraft. But just because it's called uncontrolled doesn't mean it's a free-for-all. There are still rules to follow. For recreational flyers, you may fly in uncontrolled airspace up to 400 feet above ground level. There is no airspace authorization required, and you no longer need to notify airport operators if you are flying within 5 miles of an airport. To fly in controlled airspace, you must have an airspace authorization before you fly. Let's talk about what that means for you. There are 3 ways a recreational flyer can operate in controlled airspace. 1. By flying at an FAA-approved fixed recreational flying site. 2. Through the Low Altitude Authorization and Notification Capability (LAANC) system. And 3. By using the DroneZone web portal. Recreational flyers should not contact air traffic control or the tower directly for airspace authorizations. Recreational flyers are able to request and receive their authorizations in near real time from companies approved by the FAA to provide LAANC services. These companies are known as FAA-approved UAS service suppliers and are listed on our website. Our web-based portal, DroneZone, is also available for recreational flyers to request airspace authorizations where LANS is not available. Keep in mind, DroneZone does not operate in near real-time like LANS does, so you'll need to submit your authorization request with enough time for air traffic personnel to review. Although authorizations are issued relatively quickly, we are asking you to submit your request at least 90 days in advance. Certain locations have received standing authorizations for recreational flying. They are known as fixed sites. The sites are represented as blue dots on UAS facility maps. You can also find a list of approved fixed sites on the FAA webpage. If UAS facility maps and LANs are new to you, please visit our YouTube channel where we have additional instructional videos. When you are flying at a fixed recreational flying site, you must still comply with all the rules for recreational flyers. In addition to those rules, there may be specific rules that the flying site uses, which you also need to follow. This is because, in order for a flying site to receive approval, they must have a mutually agreed upon operating procedure established with the local air traffic facility. Those mutually agreed upon procedures must be followed by all users of that site. Now you're all set to fly. But wait, one more very important thing. Before you fly, make sure there are no airspace restrictions in your area. There could be a temporary flight restriction or TFR issued for where you want to fly. TFRs are established for safety and security reasons and typically exist for a limited period of time. Large outdoor sporting events are also included in many TFRs. You also might find your location is inside prohibited or restricted airspace, designed to protect the safety and security of certain locations and events. The Know Before You Fly website and the Before You Fly app are great resources to help you identify where current airspace restrictions exist. Okay, your drone is registered. You're going to follow safety guidelines. You've checked the airspace. You might be asking, can I go fly now? Yes, it's time to go fly. Keep in mind, there are some in-flight rules you need to be aware of. First, at all times, you must keep your aircraft within visual line of sight. That means you must be able to physically see the drone that you're flying. There is a provision for all you first-person view FPV flyers out there. You can fly FPV as long as you have someone located physically next to you and who can communicate with you without using technology like a cell phone or radio. We call that person a visual observer. So, either the person flying the drone or the visual observer must have the aircraft within visual line of sight at all times. Keeping your drone within visual line of sight also allows you to stay away from any manned aircraft that may be flying near you. When you fly, you're required to avoid all manned aircraft, airplanes, helicopters, gliders, ultralights, etc. It's your responsibility as a recreational flyer to know the altitude and position of your drone in relation to other aircraft, including emergency response aircraft. As I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, the FAA is working to implement all the congressional requirements of the 2018 Reauthorization Act. We are developing a process for recognizing community-based organizations, CBOs. Those organizations that meet the statutory requirements will be formally recognized by the FAA and have approved safety guidelines for recreational flyers to follow. They will also have approved procedures to operate large or advanced model aircraft. Another IOU we have is the Aeronautical Knowledge and Safety Test. When ready, passing this test will be required to fly any drone or RC aircraft for recreational purposes. We are developing this test, which will include training materials, in consultation with industry and the general public. Once the test is available, you'll need to provide documentation that you took and passed the test, if asked by FAA personnel or law enforcement. This presentation has been all about how you can fly recreationally in the National Airspace System. Thank you for your time and attention.